Today is Tuesday, March 22nd, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Shalau of Is Was Brewing. I'm here with my co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple. Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to your own store.
Yeah.
We are also here with the Fade Master Serge. Serge promised he'd get on mic for this episode.
But lo and behold, only brought two mics.
Only brought two mics. Weird, Serge. Very weird move.
But he, quite the fade coming in, though.
Yeah, it was an amazing fade. One of your best, for sure.
It is a true audio-visual experience to watch him fade, too, which we're not really even joking about. You guys have to watch this guy fade.
It's a very expressive, like, bringing us in. It's wonderful.
Eyes
it's
closed.
a thing of beauty. Mm-hmm. He's really in the zone.
Yeah, he's firing on all cylinders right now.
Amazing. We'd like to thank WLPN, Jamie Trecker, Ed Marr.
Yeah, why not?
Whoever's,
Throw Logan Bay in. We're going
Logan,
way back on this episode.
Also Logan, Ruben Kincaid, King Kona, everyone involved in the Shell Corporation that owns the Shell Corporation that owns the Shell Corporation that started the nonprofit of WLPN.
Yes.
All of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us on. And thanks to all the listeners. We still have, I just realized something. We have a letter that we should be reading as well. So we might have to take a break and come back and get a letter. And it comes along with the beer as well.
Oh, wow.
Which is not yet chilled down. So
Overachiever here. That will always get you on the show.
Yes, always.
If you send a letter, period, probably getting on the show.
Yeah.
You send a beer with the letter, we're going to drink that beer, you're probably getting on the show.
Yeah.
So
your chances of getting on the show don't improve.
Go from 99.8 to 100.
Well, you said probably, so 99.9, but we will drink the beer.
Right. We got to fill content here.
Yeah.
What's new, Chris? What's going on?
Been getting a bunch of letters, bunch of electronic letters, all sorts of stuff like that. So that's been interesting from the show side of things. Thank you very much. Our the pop filter on this mic broke, and now I have to remind myself to buy a new one. So we're not getting that.
Just keep your plosives to a minimum.
Yes,
I'm popping peas over here.
Yeah,
and you can't tell.
Right, and I'm like pop, and it's just messing everything up.
Yeah.
But other than that, what's new with me? Last week was
it was
a busy
hell
one.
week for you.
Hell week for me.
2 a days.
Yeah, 7 a days.
7 a days.
7 a days for me, but that's slowing down. Got a bunch of events. Tomorrow is a pretty big day, and then Wednesday is a pretty big day. But
you realize tomorrow is Wednesday. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying tomorrow is a big day, and then Wednesday is a big day. That's what you said.
Sorry, Thursday.
Just want to make sure you're showing up to everything.
Wait, I just missed 7 events today. That means no
one's gonna be mad.
Wednesday and Thursday, but all with kind of definitely not. I was not soul nourishing, not soul crushing, but not soul nourishing things. Just kind of keep the lights on stuff.
Like the oatmeal of soul.
Yeah, I mean, even oatmeal's got that like nice kind of homey, comforting feel to it. This is just like doing your reps, getting in there, and keeping the lights on type stuff.
Good, got it.
So
nice.
But you got to keep the lights on so you can do interesting, fun things like, donut and coffee and beer pairings like we had the other day, which was
sleeper hits.
Yeah, sleeper hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how about you? What's going on with you?
You know, Chris, I am now the proud owner of a trio of horseradish flavored things.
That's right. You and me both.
Yeah, and Serge. We got
three of us.
We got
Trifecta.
finessed by the best.
We did.
Anyone who's spent some time in bars or tap rooms on the northwest side of Chicago knows G.I. Joe, the sausage man.
The true sausage king.
Sausage king of Chicago.
Chicago. Screw Abe Froman.
He is a man who drives around in a refrigerated truck. I mean, I don't think the cab is refrigerated, but
No, it's like a Dodge Ram, small, whatever the smallest version of that, but a pickup. But then he has like a
Good Humor Man style, like cooler in the back.
just shoved into the back of it, and it says G.I. Joe. All the IP from G.I. Joe, just completely authorized. And he goes around in a always torn up like butcher's smock.
Yeah, it's the same one. It's like,
and I think he might have like, I don't know, does he have camouflage pants underneath it? Maybe
usually has some camo pants underneath.
And he goes bar to bar selling meats, horseradishes, pickles, and cheeses.
Yeah. And he's the best at it. He's the best in the game. He's the best guy going.
May also be the worst.
Bar to bar.
Yeah.
So,
He's definitely the best at it for sure.
But he runs this great game. Comes in, cuts up a bunch of summer sausage, a bunch of pepperonis, a bunch of ham. Makes you a plate. Gets you some crackers. A bunch of this amazing horseradish that will clear your sinuses out.
Oh yeah, I was crying.
Let you eat a little bit. Makes you feel a little bit bad that he gave you all this stuff. You're like, I'll get one thing, which is. So I wanted some of this horseradish, and so did Serge.
So did I.
So did you. So I'm like, hey, let us get like a can of the horseradish, for the effort. And goes back out to his truck.
And you said
as Serge, as he goes back out to his truck, I'm like, Serge, I don't know if you've dealt with this guy before. He's going to try to sell us a bunch of stuff we don't need. You don't have to buy it. Just like stand strong. Comes back in with 3 separate bags with 3 different things in it, 2 of which none of us ordered. Tells us it's $20, and we're all like, yeah, all right, cool.
Yep. Got it.
So it's what I imagine going
Take my money.
into like a Scientology center in the 90s would have been like, where you're like, nah, this is stupid. And then all of a sudden you're like, there's so many thetans. There's just too many thetans. I got to get rid of them. Yeah, but
yes. So we experienced
we were hustled.
Midwest original. Well, what did you say? It's
the lightest of muggings,
yes.
right? Like none of us wanted to give him $20 whole, and in fact, Serge and I gave him $21 because we didn't have cash, and he put it into his phone for the credit card and just charged us an extra $1. But neither of us said anything,
right?
But yeah, as I said, I think I said before we started the show, I'm more of a patron of the arts. I respect the hustle, and so I'll take your horseradish cheddar. Pound of horseradish cheddar spread that I will have.
Go bad.
We'll go bad before I get home probably.
Still have, true story, I still have the other jar of hot pickles from the last time. So now I'll have 2 jars.
But you also were just
of
like
hot pickles.
Yeah, okay, whatever. I'll take
whatever. Right there. I just gave him $20.
Yeah, you're not gonna be like, no, I'll give you 17 for these 2 this horseradish and the cheese.
No, just give them to me. That's fine. But yeah, that's for those of you out there. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah. A guy in a butcher's playing the role of a butcher.
Yeah,
selling the same items, but I don't really see him anywhere else. And yeah, door to door, or really bar door to bar door,
tavern to
tavern. Meat, horseradish, cheese, and condiments.
Right.
Usually like spicy condiments, like horseradish pickles or something like that.
And he's
salesman.
He's not like the tamale guy, because the tamale guy is coming and selling you things because you are drunk and you need to eat something. This guy's just selling you summer sausage and horseradish to take home. It's not like he's making you a meal or something. He gave you some bites of stuff. But I was saying
the horseradish is exceptionally good.
It's amazing. And apparently it's harvested in downstate Illinois, and he had a great story about it, which is probably not true, but
it's probably
it probably was true at one point,
right?
Yeah, but it just I was saying he was a Chicago institution to Serge, and then he was telling us stories about how he's in in Indiana and in Milwaukee, and so he's a Midwestern institution. He's probably in other other beer podcasts in other parts of the
Been
Midwest.
at it as long as I know of, and as you were saying, goes way
I had
back.
a coworker who grew up in the northwest side of Chicago, and said when he was sneaking to bars, it's like 16, and he's about 40 now. He would see G.I. Joe running around, probably selling the same batch of horseradish.
Right.
It'll go bad, so next time I come around, you got to buy more. But it's probably the same batch from the first time.
Right. Amazing.
The original.
Not afraid of an off-color story either, that man.
No, he's not. He was telling some interesting stories about some clown bars that he would sell sausage to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He likes to go into places of ill repute. He has no problem going and spending lots of time and talking to the patrons and employees of places of ill repute.
Yeah. So, if you're
There
out
you
there,
go. G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe, thank you for the horseradish and the cheese horseradish and the spicy pickles that I now have.
But to some degree, the $20 got you the items, but it also got you the memory, the story.
Right.
That all goes with it.
Right. You know who Nick Kokonis is? He's like one of the co-owners of Alinea, like a 3 Michelin star restaurant and the A-Beer and all those. He has this thing where he talks about how most people are miscategorizing fine dining. They think it's like a food experience, but really it's actually like a theater experience.
I would say of my definitely with Alinea, and I do think that of the 3-star versus the 2-star places I've been to, service is definitely the biggest difference.
So,
I don't know if I'd put it as maybe, I don't know. I guess what you do.
It's performance art for him.
Okay, for him, for sure.
And so I'm saying Nick Kokonis and G.I. Joe understand the same thing about selling food. This is a performance. You're here to be entertained. That's what we paid for today.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a good segue into the episode today, right? Because it's just us. There's no other people here except for Serge. And we're in the back area. We're in the warehouse. And we're just going to talk about fond memories. Because then we had a feel-good episode a little while back.
Yeah, things we like about beer.
Right. And it made us think like, oh, yeah, there are things we like about beer.
Yeah.
There are good memories that we have associated with it.
Every once we got to sprinkle in the nice things about, hopefully not talk about on tap for 45 minutes.
Right,
But
exactly. Although that got a lot of response, got a lot of engagement.
Welcome to the Untapped podcast.
I'm still thinking about the last episode about the influencers and everything, how to build engagement with your audience.
Yeah.
That's how I talk now, by the way.
I did post our Instagram post today at 6:30 instead of noon, just because of that conversation. So we're basically blowing up.
I also posted a post on Instagram as late as I can remember, mainly because despite what Doug said on the last episode, those little videos take forever. And,
right.
I think it took me an hour or an hour and a half or something to get everything me just screaming how do you get the music to go on? What is happening?
Maybe for Doug, who's in the best way possible, part robot.
Right.
But not for us.
But I did post it Friday on at 5, I think it was Friday. A lot of engagement. It was about, because we started Firkin Friday. We started a new Firkin Friday.
Just like Doug was talking about.
Yes. So we kicked it off with a new entry into Chicago. Imported from Indiana. Mm-hmm. 450 North is now here. And we had a cask of their watermelon slushy XL IPA. So
it's 2% alcohol, just like a mild.
Yep. We classified it in Untapped. We put it in as a mild cask, mild because it is 2. I mean, they say it's 8%, but we all know it's really 2%.
Yeah.
I don't think the alcoholizers lie. And a lot of engagement we got. As much as anything short of any time we post a picture of Bourbon County. Pretty much as high of engagement as we get. Mm-hmm.
People were big mad. People were confused and upset and hating.
They don't like tradition. They're all like, "Why are you being such an old man with cask ale and stuff?" You know?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Camera just sent you a big thumbs up emoji.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So we tagged camera.
Did you get the White Oakley sponsorship or?
Yeah, I was wearing white Oakleys. Well, I was wearing them, not over my eyes.
Is that a Guy Fieri like signature model Oakley you were wearing? Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought so.
yeah. No, they're. I bought it at his one of his outlet stores at the mall.
He's got outlet stores now. Do they serve food there, or are they just Guy Fieri merch? Like fire?
No, it's not a
So,
restaurant.
did they just take over a lot of like the inventory from Hot Topics that had closed in malls and have a lot of fire shirts and like hair dyeing? Like,
Yeah, a lot of that hair dye. They have a lot of facial hair dye, facial hair grooming kits.
a lot of like templates to get like the pointiest. And good.
Yeah.
Well,
So anyway,
what's it called? What's the store called again?
the guy Fieri.
Yeah.
It's called Bangin'. Guy Fieri's Bangin' Store.
Yeah, it's. I thought it was going to be called Flavor Town or something like that, but no.
okay.
Bangin' Store is very good.
Guy Fieri's Bangin' Store.
You know, you can't. Be,
That store's banging.
You can't be subtle. You have to draw both the people that are still at the mall in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sell them flame shirts, goatee, stencils,
And
white Oakleys,
White Oakleys.
signature model white Oakleys.
Yeah. Signature model White Oakley. So anyway, we put that up on Friday, which is, we're not joking, guys. That is true. You can look it up. And we were serving them in domed Slurpee mugs with the shovel spoons.
I mean, you have to have proper glassware.
Yes, exactly. That was one of the hashtags. Proper glassware, real ale, stuff like that. And yeah, some people were upset probably because they missed out on it. It
Haters.
kicked really, really fast.
They thought you were bringing the trade value down by letting people take them into go cups.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Doug was right. 5:00, I assume, is why.
5 o'clock Frickin' Friday.
Frickin' Friday, baby. So we'll be doing it this Friday as well with something. I think it'll probably be keeping in the same vein. It's going to be Revolution's Paddy Wagon Irish Stout, a cask of that. I think we'll be putting on.
Same beer.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's the same beer, but
Nice.
yeah, one's like one's obviously Paddy Wagon, and then the only difference I would say between the two is that the other one is an XL slushy watermelon IPA.
Mouth feels a little different. That's it, though.
But yeah,
Basically the same.
basically the same thing. So that was fun. But that's not why we're here. We're here to
not
talk
why
about.
we're here.
I mean, that was a good memory. It was frustrating at the time because videoing it was fun.
Yeah.
But getting it to go up was quite a headache.
Yeah.
So
Well, you suffer for your art. Just
Yeah.
like G.I. Joe.
yeah, I like how you said you're a patron of the arts.
Yeah.
So let's
Respect to hustle.
yeah, we're killing quite a bit of time here.
much time,
So if anyone's still listening, thank you. You can. But let's get to
If you got past through the first 15 minutes that were dead air and these 18 minutes, then
right. Hey,
You're-
the
you're
dead
a-
air.
you're
That
a
was
real
only
one.
one time. That show doesn't even have the dead air anymore. I fixed it. So
if you have the dead air version NFT, you can trade that for a lot
true.
of Pappy Van Winkle.
it's worth a lot. Yes.
Anyway.
So what are we talking about, Mike?
We're here to talk about tell some stories about wonderful times we've had drinking beers, experience we've had with other people that were only really possible because of the beer, I guess, or that was what brought people together.
Yeah, or just like, sure, yeah, or yeah, just general cool stories that people might find fun or cool,
fun,
or
entertaining,
whatever.
Spiritually uplifting.
Yeah, in fact, I just realized and one thing I will mention is I guarantee you I will forget things because one of them I remember had 2 parts to it, and I just realized I had 3 parts to it actually, so I had to just update my notes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you did say you have a few bangers, I think is what you said. You wanted to start off with. Maybe you said they were a
Bangin'. No, I said they're
They're
bangin'.
banging. So these are things that happened in Guy Fieri's banging store.
Yes. So this one time I bought White Oakleys.
And I recorded a video.
Yeah.
So what's one of your fondest experiences you've had that involved or happened because of beer? Or
So I'm going first. Okay.
yeah, I'm forcing you to go first.
Forcing me to go first. Okay, that's fine. Well, I think both of us have pretty cool stories. And I was looking at to help me remember, I was just going through my camera reel, and I found some cool ones. I found the one of you holding up the Willet, the bottle of the 26-year Willet with your Fobab medal. Hopefully that's not one of your stories.
No, I kind of had forgotten about that, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, like winning the medal, I thought maybe. But,
yeah.
You can talk about that if you want.
Probably won't.
Okay.
We can.
So I think to me, it's definitely memories that. Well, I think you put it pretty well. That were facilitated or involved. Beer or drink of some kind,
or mutual appreciation of beer with people.
And funny thing is, none of mine, I think, involve number one is the best beer I ever had, and it was it's not that, right? But they're still my favorite memories.
Yeah.
So let me see. Where should I begin? Well, I can't start with that one because it's too expected. Okay, how about this one? I'll do one with a little bit of just cool things and with a cool person that is, I'm very thankful that I got to have these experiences with this pretty amazing person. Not all mine are going to be involve cool people or anything like that.
Yeah.
Name dropping, exactly. This is my only name droppy one, but I figured, well, do you start with the name droppy one or do you ease into it so they don't think you're bragging? But I'm just going to go for it. So I have 3 that involve Cantillon that are all, I think, amazing stories. So,
all right, I got one too, so we can.
Okay,
do
cool.
This will be our Cantillon chunk.
Perfect. So, man, maybe I have I think I have. Okay, so it might be even more. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm surprised that I have so many that involve Cantillon, but I do. So the first time I ever went to Cantillon is one of these stories, and it was on my honeymoon, and it was my first time in Brussels, and it was my wife and I. We were staying in Brussels for a little while. We knew we wanted to go to Cantillon. It was, definitely a big deal. We were excited about it. It was pre-rideshare. It was pre-smartphone. So
you got married in 1945?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we got married in 45. The war was just ending, and we were there to celebrate. So we were in Times Square, and I just gave her this big kiss and leaned over, and photographer was there, and that's the end of it. So no, we were there. So I think we were it was printing out MapQuest or just remembering and writing stuff down, and
remembering.
Remember having to remember how to get to places. So we go there, and we're not sure if it's right because you don't see. Yes, you're walking there. It's right here, and it's a seedy part of town. I think it's gotten a little better, but it was pretty seedy.
I was there in early 2020. It didn't seem that great, but
okay. But I mean, there was a dude in an abandoned lot,
so.
Masturbating when we were walking there, and we're like, this is weird, man. We weren't quite sure if we felt safe, So we go and we're I think this is it. We're looking around. It was in August, and I think maybe kind of like France, just a lot of the city is kind of on holiday and stuff, and the city slows down a bit, and it just says, okay, I see the little Cantillon, black iron Cantillon man on a little sign hanging, and it says Cantillon across these big, almost like barn doors. But I had imagined Cantillon was, out in not the center of a city in a crummy part of town.
Right, everything is going to be very pastoral and surrounded by orchards, and that's how you make the best, naturally
Right.
fermented beers, you have to have all the beautiful microorganisms. And
Right.
really it's just guys jerking off down
So I'm
the
like,
street
this
in an
is
empty alley.
right, and that's what's getting into the lambic that makes it so good. He hires that man to just jerk off all the time. So
Serge is writing
Writing
that
all this
down,
down.
in case we want to get rid of that.
No, he's just trying to know the keys to good lambic. That's the headline I'm seeing. So, my expectations are a little like, oh man, this isn't what I wanted this to be. I wanted this to be this like insane place.
You want to be Hill Farmstead.
So I knock on the door because we're like, this is weird. Is this right? So we knock on it. There's no open. There's no come in. And like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 seconds later, the door cracks open and John Van Wa's head pops out and like my mouth probably fell open. Yeah. I was like, and he was like, I'm the only one here. So come on in. And he like, whoops. And we come in. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And we were the only ones there. And he's like running around. And throughout when we were there, some other people did end up coming in, but not a lot of people were there. And he's like, here, self-guided tour, stuff like that. Walk around and just, saw that this place was pretty incredible. It was amazing. And then he was serving all the lambic. And it was, crazy. So he was serving us out of his bottles. It was amazing. He was telling us about them. And then at one point I was like, do you have any young lambic? And I thought like maybe they sold it. And he's like, because then a couple people would come in and there were a bunch of like Japanese students who had gone because it's a museum as well. It's like classified as a museum. So like, I guess these students were there to look at this like museum, probably get credit or something. I don't know. And he's like, hold on. And I was like, well, I wanted to be like, no, don't. But then I was like, don't do that for me. But then I was like, maybe I'll just shut up. Yeah, maybe I should just shut up. So it goes to a cask and like comes back with young lambic and I get to try it for the first time ever. And he had like poured it directly from a cask of Cantillon, which was like pretty unbelievable.
The beer was unbelievable. The experience was unbelievable. My memory of having young lambic there, which is part of their like the tour, if you actually like show up when they're open, was being very like, wait, this is what it tastes like after a year. And I'm like, oh, right. we're doing okay then. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's the part one, and then part two was, I think I'm getting this. Oh, yes. So then part two was in 2013, and it was, I might have the exact day. No, I don't. So it was, oh boy, I guess maybe June or April of 2013, and I was at the pre-opening of Off Color Brewing.
I remember this.
Yeah, and it was like an open house, and we're just like kind of mingling, and my wife was there with our newborn daughter, who was probably like a month old. I don't know, I mean, maybe less. She was really young. Already took her to a brewery, And it was cool. I was very happy to see John and Dave Bleitner and
John Lafler, not John Van Roy.
John Lafler, yeah, not Jean, but
yeah.
John. Yeah, I should probably say, before I'm just name drop.
Yeah.
Next thing I'm like Don. I'm like Don Bishel,
Yeah.
Just like Rob Todd.
Rob Todd.
What if one of my greatest memories was listening to Don talk about Rob Todd?
That was going to be one of mine.
Todd.
But no.
Yeah.
Best, most efficient name in the game.
Yeah.
ROBT.
So I'm going there, I'm looking around, seeing who's there and this and that, and I look and I like do a double take because I'm like, that's Jean Van Wa. He's in Off Color. What? And then I look over and I see John Lafler from like 20 yards away, and he sees me and he's looking at me, and I look back and he looks at me and he just kind of like nods because he must have seen that I was surprised, and he was like smiling and nodding. I was like, oh my God. So I wasn't going to bum rush the guy because he was definitely there was definitely some like sycophantic things going on. Like people just wanted to be around him.
Sure.
But he was in town because of the Shelton Fest that was going on in Maine. So he stopped off in Chicago.
Why not?
Right. I think he was visiting Christina from West Lakeview Liquors and stuff. And I was talking to Mark. I was like, well, I got to go up to him and say something. I got to do something. I mean, but what am I going to do? I was like, I don't want to get my picture taken. I don't want to do anything like that. So I was like, oh, I know. I'm going to ask him if I can take a picture of him holding Katie. And I was like, all right, that's what I do it. So I'm like, okay, I was like, hey, can I take a picture of you holding my daughter? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Fine. So
He wasn't like confused at all?
Right.
Because he's just like a guy. Like,
Yeah.
he's
So
not-
there's the picture. You've probably seen it before.
Oh my God. Yeah, she is tiny.
Yeah. So that's him in I'll make it like the photo of the episodes. You guys can all see it. So it's John holding Katie.
That's pretty amazing.
At 1 month old. So I once worked with a guy who had a picture. His grandfather was a famous boxing trainer, and he had a picture of him being held as a young baby by Muhammad Ali, which is what I was like, that's an awesome. So I was like, okay, one day Katie, except for something that nobody's gonna know.
Something way cooler.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. So he's like, oh, send it to me. And I sent it to him, and he sent it to his wife, and his wife was all happy. And I still, when I see him every now and then, I'm still like, hey, remember when you took him? He's like, and he remembers. He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've sent him
Weirdest
pictures.
thing anyone asked me to do.
And I've sent him pictures of, Katie looks like this, what she looks like now, and stuff like that. So it's pretty crazy. So that was an amazing memory as well.
Yeah.
And then part 3, and there's oh my gosh, there's 4 parts. I'll make it quick. I'm
This
taking
is the
forever.
Cantillon story hour.
Right. Next day, there's a private tasting. They're shutting down West Lakeview Liquors, and Jean's going to be there, and they're going to be, drinking lambic. And I wasn't aware of that, but I'd heard through the grapevine. And there are some times where I'm just like, well, I'm going to this.
Yeah, right.
And that was one of them. And I just basically, even when I got there, then kind of just wormed my way in, even because they were like very strict about who is coming in, even when you're at the door. And I forget exactly what I did.
That was right around when I was working there. I think I had left already. But
Okay.
There was a vibe there where like only the cool kids. Like,
Yeah, and I never, whatever. I was getting in, and I got in, and a lot of those cool kids, I learned a lot that day. At first, there was like a lot of people standing around them and this and that. And
they're not cool kids. That's the one.
Yeah, and I'm not going to name names because there's some names that people may recognize. But and then at one
Sean
point,
Van Roy was there.
They all a lot of the cool kids started like having their own bottle share with like the rarest of the rare, which at the time I think like Hill Farmstead was like the one to have, and they had a lot of like Hill Farms, and they like went off into a corner and started like jerking each other off and having
this sounds very familiar,
and having like a bottle share with themselves, which was like obviously like I probably could have wormed my way into that, but I certainly didn't seem to be invited. And the other thing was, so Jean was on one side of the room, and they were on the complete opposite in a little circle amongst themselves drinking like Hill Farmstead. Hey, and by the way, I'm not hating on Hill Farmstead.
You're more of a Treehouse man, though.
Yes. Now, if it had been King Julius.
In 2013, if it had been King Julius, that would have been pretty crazy.
Yeah, it would have been amazing. This is my home brew.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of starting something up.
Literally in a treehouse.
But even if Sean Hill had been there, he wouldn't have been in that circle.
Right.
Right. So, and I just remember like being like, what the hell is going on? Like, but partially being like good.
You're like, I got to sell beer to these people.
No, I don't want to. Like, those were never the people. I learned also quickly that like you cannot cater a store to them. That was one thing I did learn about a store. Like they don't care about you. They're not loyal to you. They don't care.
They didn't get any of that stuff in the store.
Right. None of it. Yeah. Exactly. So
they're beyond stores.
So I'm like, Jean is pouring Cantillon, telling about the blends, the history behind the brewery, behind these the individual.
Have you had Abner?
Right.
Have you had this 2-week-old Abner from a growler?
But even things like he had multiple years of like Swansea in bottles that he was like pouring, and
I bet Christina had those in the basement.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh yeah. I don't know how much he brought.
Oh,
Yeah.
She had all that stuff in there.
And then Mark Linsner, Chicago Beer Society, the most knowledgeable lambic person I know, which that reminds me, we have to have him and Grandstrom on for a show. I've been talking. We have to do a lambic show with those
hot
guys.
take history.
Unbelievable. So he knows so much about lambic. He's been going to Belgium and visiting, I think, as many of the Belgian breweries that will let him in, I think, for well over now it's probably 20 years.
Wow.
And he keeps like immaculate notes, and he's been going to Cantillon for probably 30 years.
Wow.
So he comes and he's there, obviously, and he pulls out a bottle that just has a piece of tape on it that says Fufun. And he's like, this is the first bottling ever of Fufun. Your father gave this to me at Cantillon, he says to Jean. And John is like, what? Whoa. And he opens it up, and he's just like delighted to be drinking it. And we're all just amazed and just having this experience. They're in the corner drinking Abner. They might have at that point like come over and like, hey, what's up? I don't remember.
That probably
but,
sounds about right.
But that was amazing too. I mean, the first bottling ever of Fufun that given to Jean, and you're there, and he's like, so cool.
So my story definitely isn't as cool as that, but it's similar to. So I
have a part 4 at the end.
All right. That's good. You can tell another a cooler story.
A bookended.
Yeah. So I was at the first Shelton Brothers Festival in Worcester. Actually,
Yeah, I've heard that one's legendary.
When I was working at West Lakeview, so probably a year before what you were doing. Mm-hmm. So it's cooler. But so we were at a pre-party at some bar out in Worcester, which is not the coolest place in the world, but and I didn't know what embarrassment of riches was around me at the time, but they had Edward, like one of the first batches of Edward on draft. And I remember drinking it and being like, this is insane. But Jean was there, amongst other brewers and stuff. And I vaguely...
Armand, perhaps, too.
Probably. I don't remember. This is 10 years ago.
Right.
Sheesh. But so he was just hanging out, talking to Christina, actually, and I was just like in the circle around them too. And this, I don't know who it was, but someone, I think he was from Kentucky, came up and said, I have this bottle of Goose from 1973. And I've been saving it for a special occasion, and I couldn't think of a more special occasion than you coming to America to do this festival, and I'd like to share it with you. And so they opened this bottle of Goose from 1973.
It's amazing.
And share, I get a little pour of it. They share with everyone, and Jean is just like, "Oh, this is vinegar." It's too old. Like it just doesn't hold up this long.
Yeah.
And like the guy's like, "Yeah, it tastes like vinegar, but still a fun time. Like getting to
sure.
share this thing I've held on to for like for at that point 40 years."
Right. At that point, it's not about what's. I mean, you may have a magical moment.
Yeah.
Where it something has happened to it in the bottle.
Right.
But more often than not, you're expecting it to not be that, to be the opposite of that, just for it to be too old, but you still appreciate how long that bottle has been there,
yes.
and you kind of are thankful that you're experiencing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like incidentally, I didn't intend it to do this, but it speaks to kind of the theme of the show, and we were like talking about it of like not necessarily the best beers we've ever had, but like
right.
And that's a perfect example of it, because that beer probably was transcendent at one point, but it just held on too long and kind of lost its luster. But the experience of having that is something I'll never forget. And
right.
I barely knew who he was at the time. I was 23 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just a kid.
Just a kid. Look at me now.
Another, the last one was the most recent time I was at Cantillon, and Linsner just happened to be in Belgium at the time. and we met up there. And there were some people who, I guess he takes on kind of like interns who are working at breweries, and I don't know if they're probably paid, but they're like paid internships or apprenticeships or something like that. I think Matt Tarpey from The Vale kind of famously was one of the people who did that. So there were some people there, and it was a brew day. And we got there early, and Jean, they had already, I think, done like the first running or something like that. Yeah, they had already, I think, they had already mashed out, and we're pulling it into the copper to boil it, and they were like boiling it at that point, and then it was going to go into the cool ship after that. But so the mashing had happened. They took a break to have like a very Belgian breakfast. So it was
like some dark chocolate and a cigarette.
Exactly. No, it was like a croissant or like some sort of like breakfast roll. And the wort and the Cantillon wort. Like, which was like this like sweet tea. So it was like breakfast bread and sweet tea, which was effing Cantillon wort that we were all just sitting around eating that bread and drinking the wort, which was amazing. And then at the kettle, some of the guys were they were hauling those aged hops. Remember, they aged the hops for 3 years or something like that, and then they had a ton of hops in there, but they're in these bricks, and they have to like break them open. So Jean's like showing these guys like how you have to do it, and the guy's like trying to do it, and he's like, no, come on, you gotta like really get in there. And they're doing it for a while, and I'm like taking pictures of it, and then Masney's there, and he's like, well, I'm gonna do it. So I was like, yeah, go for it. And at first I was like, I don't know, should you? But he's definitely
he's
right.
gonna go do it. Yeah,
he's right too.
Yeah.
So. And he's doing it. And John comes by and sees him doing it. And he's like, what's the difference? You're putting it in. And so I got a great picture, which is up on the wall now. You may see it if you've ever been at the bar in the middle room. There's a picture of hands putting hops
big
into
old mitts.
Yeah, and that's Steve Masney's hands putting hops into Cantillon. And then I got to do it. And then I was like, all right, take a picture of me. But my picture's not as good.
Sure.
The one of me. So I was like putting hops into the beer at Cantillon, which was... pretty amazing as well. So that's the end of my 4 Cantillon stories.
Sweet.
Yes, which started out as 2, and then as I was telling it, after this started, 2 more came to my mind. So there's maybe even one that I'm forgetting.
Well, we can do like a little stinger at the end. It can be like the Patreon episode.
Right.
We'll have all your other Cantillon stories.
But I think that's the majority of the name dropping. So.
Yeah,
but I mean, pretty
cool.
Right?
Very cool experiences.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate.
When I started thinking about this topic, I had a lot of travel stories of like I've gotten to travel all over the world and brew collaborations and make some pretty fun beers. This one specifically, I was invited to Japan and then China. Happened to have 2 festivals in back-to-back weeks from separate entities, but. Was in 14 days between Japan and China. And the first day, so we fly direct from Chicago into Japan. And
wow, how long does that take?
Like 14 and a half hours. And the day we get in, we scheduled an event at a friend's bar. We have a friend in Japan who was bringing in Pipeworks.
Okay.
And so... I was leading up to the trip. I had started doing all this research on like how do you beat jet lag and blah blah blah. And so one thing that I got in my head was that if I drank a bunch and ate a bunch of melatonin at the time I should fall asleep in Japan time, I'd fall asleep on the plane and then wake up, feel great. Didn't really work, but I didn't feel terrible when we get off the plane. Even after a 14 and a half hour flight, we go to our hotel, drop our stuff off, go to meet up with Koji, who's our friend in Japan. And then a couple hours later, we're going to have this event. And we go to eat.
What was the name of the event? It was like the Snow Monkey?
Snow Monkey Beer Live. Snow Monkey Beer Live. It's a music festival and a beer festival. That was 2 days later, actually.
Okay, I considered coming out for that. By the way.
That was really cool. That was
It's like my wife's spirit animal, or those those snow monkeys.
So when maybe I know it was a capuchin. When I did the Patronus thing on the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, I got a capuchin monkey, which is not a snow monkey, unfortunately, but they're very cool. I did meet the snow monkeys; they're kind of dicks. But anyway, we're in Tokyo at this point, and we go out for dinner. We want to do one of those like Japanese steak dinners where you grill a little piece of steak, and I'm like feeling great actually. Like colors are super vibrant. Like I feel fantastic. Like, oh wow, this is great. I'm gonna have a couple beers, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna talk to all these Japanese guys about Pipeworks beer. It's gonna be so much fun. By the end of the meal, I am out of my mind with jet lag. Like, I don't know what's going on anymore. It took about an hour to go from being I feel amazing to I have no idea what's going on. So we go back to the bar to start the event, and I'm yeah, Kate. I'm with Kate, friend of the show, Kate Brankin. She's doing fine, I guess, and I seem to be doing fine, but I'm speaking gibberish. Like I would start telling a story about like how we made this collaboration with Koji. It was a collaboration with Pipeworks, Half Acre, Three Floyds, and Dark Matter. And Koji had sent us a list of things. He's like, here's things that we like here. It's like, well, of course we want to do coffee, but we like big IPAs, and lactose is really popular here. And then we had a meeting. It was like to me, it felt like the Godfather meeting of the families, where it was like Bogus, it was Matt Young, it was Jesse from Dark Matter, I guess, and it was me. And a bunch of other people from Pipeworks. But it was like, these are like people that you don't get these people in a room to make a decision. And the decision we came to is, okay, let's do all of it. So it was a coffee lactose double IPA. And Koji was like, I didn't tell you to do all of that. Like, yeah, we did it though. So, and it had like geisha coffee in it. It was like the craziest beer. And we sent like half of the batch to Japan for the Snow Monkey Beer Live and for this event. So trying to explain to people that, yeah, we put all this stuff in there. It's an IPA, but it also has coffee and lactose. And I would just get halfway through the explanation to start basically speaking gibberish. And I would just kind of play it off as like a language barrier thing where like all these people spoke perfect English, but I was just like, oh yeah, no, it's, I don't know what the term for lactose, And so I do that for a couple hours and I'm like really hitting a wall. I am exhausted. And I think I'm pulling it off. No one's really been upset that I can't quite explain the beer to them. Kate's doing a fine job. And I'm like, all right, just got like a little bit longer and I can just go fall asleep. And like no one's really been upset because I'm always playing it off as a language barrier. And then Koji comes up to me and he's like, hey, I want you to meet Ethan. And I'm like, oh, maybe, no, it wasn't Ethan. It was Edward. I want you to meet Edward. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a Japanese guy. He's like, no, Edward's from Nebraska. And then Edward went to Harvard and studied computer science in the 70s. And he's lived in Japan ever since. And he's a huge fan of American craft beer and Pipeworks beer. And I'm like, oh, this is the worst. This is the worst thing that could happen.
Oh, no.
And so I go and I sit next to this guy who is clearly brilliant. And we start trying to talk about it. And I start speaking gibberish. And he's just like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I'm like, I'm not sure either. And he's like, well, and at the time, Shia Kogen, which is the brewery we're going to visit for the Snow Monkey Beer Live event, was brewing Hair of the Dog beers, but in Japan. So it was the exact same recipes. Like Alan Sprints had been there and like taught them how to brew like Adam.
Old ales.
How to brew like Adam. And,
Adam beer. Wow, amazing.
But they had Adam and they had Adamu, and Adamu is the Japanese version. And he's like, I want to drink these with you and we can talk about them and what the differences are. And I'm like, yeah, let me go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
You ditched him.
I didn't mean to. But in Japan, they have heated toilet seats. So I sat down. I didn't even go to the bathroom. I just needed to sit down and have a break. I sat down, and then the toilet seat was warm, and I fell asleep in the bathroom for about 35 minutes. And I wasn't drunk. I was just so out of my mind, jet lagged. I was probably a little drunk. But I came back out, and I'm like, where'd Edward go? And he's like, yeah, he left like 20 minutes ago and you didn't come out of the bathroom for 15 minutes. And I'm like, how long was I in there? They're like 35 minutes. And I'm like, Yeah, well, I'll never see that guy again. So that was,
Wow. I mean, it's a great memory, but it's like so embarrassing.
well, yeah, it was incredibly embarrassing and like weird. But it's like when I think about like travel stories for beer and things that would never have happened in my life if it wasn't for beer, I'm like, for some weird reason, that's number one on the list of things where I'm like, I would never have had this. I wouldn't have been around people. I wouldn't have been trying to explain these things, let alone to like the first computer scientist. Like,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I never ended up having any of the Atom or the Atomu.
It's okay. I'm sure it wasn't that good. It was probably terrible. You know what? In reality, in the mindset you were in, you wouldn't have remembered or tasted.
No, not at all.
I mean, you would have been like, "Oh, great."
We did later when we were at the Snow Monkey Beer Fest. We brewed a collaboration with Shia and they had a batch of Atom in the tank, and we were talking to the guy who runs the brewery, and we're like, "How long it's been?" It was cold conditioning, and we're like, "How long has it been cold conditioning?" He's like, "A year," and we're like, "You mean like a month?" He's like, "No, it's been a year," and we're like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, Alan said that it has to cold condition until it tastes right. And we drank a lot of Atom, and now I remember what it tasted like, and we're cold conditioning it until it tastes like that." I was like, it's been in here a year? That's crazy. It tasted good to me. I don't know. I was also like, I fell asleep in the bathroom that day. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, they had Atom.
Most of my sleep occurred on toilet seats.
On heated toilet seats in Japan.
So public restrooms have heated toilet seats? Or it wasn't a public?
It was at the bar.
Okay.
Yeah, often like restaurants will have heated toilet seats. I didn't even take my pants off. I just sat on it and it was like warm. And I was like, "Oh, this is nice." Zonked.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What an awesome story.
Yeah.
So I have a travel story. Are we ready to move on? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a travel story. So I go on a beer trip every year. Masney's involved in this one. The last one I was talking about with Cantillon was one of the beer trips that I go on with Boston Joe and Masney. And
I gotta go on one of those one of these days.
Awesome. They're great. So most recently I went to Scotland, which was amazing, and then I went with. But the first one is in my mind still the best. We went to England. Drank a lot.
450 North.
Drank a lot of 450 North on cask. Went to this place that had like an urban like forager who was like had like a bloody hare that he had caught that he was like taken to some like high end restaurant. All it's poaching because it's all common land is considered like the Queen's land or something in London. So it was like he was a poacher.
Amazing.
Yeah, but this is how he made his how he made his living. And this was before I think urban foraging had caught on in Chicago. Maybe it was a thing in New York. I don't know. But like,
I've got a good urban foraging story.
So he was like giving them herbs and stuff like that. But anyway, that's not really why. So we went around. We went to Burton-on-Trent, and we saw like where like IPA came from, which is pretty amazing. But I think before that, we went to almost the border of England and Wales to a cidery called Ross-on-Wye, which was in the town of Ross-on-Wye. And I have a picture of it here, which maybe will help you guys. So that's what the place looks like. It's just like a cool, like, very English, very English-looking place, right?
There's a lot of like greenery, rolling hills, stone construction.
Yes. So it looks like this was in 2014. If that might not even be right. I don't know because I can't ever trust the time. So anyway, we go there and we roll in and he's like, "Oh, hey, we had like I don't think this guy gets much tourism at all," and we had set up a time to meet with him, and we were staying there. I guess he has like a little B&B that he runs, or his wife runs, or something.
They have to, right? If you're English and you,
yeah, right. I think so. So it was a little inn. So we went there, and he like showed us around, and it was a cool story. He used to like make cider for Balmers. We would know it as Magners. Mm-hmm. Huge cider maker, and they would just basically tell him what to make every year. And be like, okay, you got to grow this varietal Next year, okay, rip up this many trees and plant this many of that. And next year, like rip up this many of what you have, because they would like know, I guess, what he had. But every time they said to rip up like all of something, he'd leave at least one tree. So
Forethought.
right, so he had like something like 70 or 80 varietals of apple and every one of these apples, I would bet, does not exist in the U.S.
Yeah.
If so, maybe one or two.
Yeah.
Like Farnham Hill may have some, or more recently, maybe somebody trying to graft some, but these
Maybe
were like
Angry Orchard.
the real deal. Right, maybe. And we're like, okay, it was cool. Very short tour. And we're like, okay, awesome. Okay, so then we like go into this like warehouse, and there's like all of these like bins and tubs and barrels that are plastic, but like food grade plastic, and like true barrel sizes, like 2 kegs, like big guys. And that's, I guess, what he ferments or conditions. I guess they had all been racked into these things. And then they had these like surgical gloves on top of them as like blow off valves or something. So they were like standing up because they had been filled up with gas. So you have all these like gloves like sticking up out of these things with the
Kind of surreal.
yeah, weird. So then like he was talking about like how he has them all by varietal, and he can tell just by the fruit what they're going to take, what apple they're from, what they're going to taste like, and that there's and I should remember. So there's like sweet, and there's tannic, and there's acid,
Sharps.
and there's sharps, and there's like these
Bitter
different
sweets.
types. Yes, and so then he's like, you know, here's one of this, here's one of that, and then here's one of the acids. We're like, oh yeah, the acid, that's where it's at. He was like, he was talking about how it's all in the blend, and we're like, no, we like we're like neat, like California, like we want like varietals, baby. We don't like, give me just the best varietal. And then he starts taking like these metal cups, and we had these metal cups, and he would like just take the tops off of these things that were conditioning, and like just dip his cup into it, and then like dollop us some of this cider. It's like, well, try this. And then we said we really like the sharp one. He's like, right, but look, now I'm going to take some of the tannin and like drop it into it. And he's like, now taste it. And we're like, oh man, it like gives this depth to it. It doesn't take away the acid at all. It's just like it's better. He's like, right. So here, watch. Now let me take some of this and put some of the sharp or whatever it was called. And we're like, he's like, now do you see how it rounds it out, but the acid's still there? And we're like, absolutely, it's even better. He's like, right, exactly. And he starts building this blend in our mugs, like bit by bit, and it just gets more and more complex as he's just going around looking at these tubs and just like figuring out what would be good and what would be next. And he just like takes it, dips his cup right into it, and then it goes around and like pours a little bit from his cup into our cup.
Sounds amazing.
Isn't that insane?
It sounds amazing.
So then we're like, this is awesome. So then he's got like this Perry that has, it looks like it has like a tapeworm in it, this bottle of Perry, and it looks like there's literally a tapeworm in it, right? We're like, what the hell is this long white ribbon that's like kind of like still, but then you pick it up, it starts floating around. He's like, that's the tannin. He's like, the tannin comes out of it and it forms this thing. We're like, what are you talking about? So he pours it. This thing is still to this day probably the most tannic thing I've ever drank in my life. So then he goes up into his into the loft, because we're like in a barn now where all this stuff is, and he's like, get something that was in a Scotch barrel. Like, here's some, something special. Here's a Scotch barrel thing. And by that point, they're on a farm, I should also mention. Like, we're walking by, like there's like fields of sheep, and there's like literal pigsties like next to this thing. And it's very gray and like almost about to drizzle, right? Very English, very English. And like one of the other farmers like walks over, like a neighbor, and he's like, oh, hey, what's going on? We're talking. And then he brings us a Scotch one. And then Masney, who's there, goes, you guys like barrel aged stuff, huh? So he's like, hold on, I got something. He comes back and gets a Bourbon County. and was telling them about it. I think it was when they were still in 12-ounce bottles, and they were quite literally had some fear. They're like, "What? 14%? What is this?" And they're like, "It's in a bourbon." They're like, "It's in a whiskey barrel. It's in a whiskey barrel," and they're like pouring it, and they're like, tasting it, and then he calls up another farmer, and he comes over, and then his nephew comes over, who's a shepherd. No, it's his niece's husband. He's a shepherd. He comes over, and we're all drinking this, and then we start opening up other stuff, and then he's like, "Well, I got some stuff in the cellar." So we go into his cellar then, and we go in, and I have a picture of this too, just to give you an idea of what it's like, and it looks pretty much just like what you would think. So you walk down into literally like an earthen cellar. So it's like a couple steps down. They're like big stones and stuff like that, and he's got all these casks, and he just starts opening stuff up into glass, and we're just like, okay, we're just
pulling nails.
Yeah, just pulling nails, and he's got a lot of these things. There's a whole bunch of them, right? I don't know, there's 10 of them at least, and then it's just self-serve, and then it starts raining, and his niece comes in, and she's got these big tall rubber boots on. They're reeks of pig shit, and it's a farm, and the whole place it's raining, and I remember looking down, and those little steps I just showed you, a little toad just goes bloop 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 and goes down into the cellar. I'm like, this is out of a Beatrix
English
shit,
man.
This is crazy. And we're sitting there having the time of our lives, self-serve, just drinking this, drinking that, talking, and then he's like, "Well, let's go to the pub." So then we go to the local pub, and we're drinking bitter on cask. The cask was awesome, and we're asking them why, because we had so much bad cask at that point. And we're like, "Do you use a breather?" And she's like, "Yeah, we use a breather." Masney goes down into her cellar and is looking at how she sets it up. He's like, "Come on down." I was like, I get it. So then he's talking to them. Joe and I are playing darts, and then it gets late. Shut in, which I'd heard about, but that's when they or lock in, shut in, I think they call it, and it's in England. I think either it's legal or it's just a thing where after hours they just lock the doors and pull the shades down, and whoever's in there is just in there.
That happens de facto here sometimes too.
So then we're just keep going, and we're just having a good old time, and I don't even know how late it got. And then we're like, okay, let's call it a day. So there were some locals there, and we're just in a small town, in England, Western England. And then we go back. I think they call maybe the shepherd or someone comes and gets us, and we all kind of drive back. It's close. And they go to bed, and then me, Steve, and Joe then grab some ciders and walk in the middle of the night through the orchards and drink the ciders in the orchards in the middle of the night, and just talk about what an amazing day it's been. And then we go to bed, and then I think 3 hours later, I woke up cripplingly hungover and said, all right, your turn to drive. We have to go up to Burton-on-Trent. We have to get there because we have a tour. And I had one of the most hungover, on these rolling hills, up and down. They're both sleeping, and I'm like,
oh, God.
But the whole thing was, a magical, one of the greatest experiences of my life. And as I was thinking about it, I texted those two, and I was like, I just thought about that. I think that's one of the greatest moments, one of the greatest days of my life.
Yeah, you only have 2 kids and got married once.
I said one of them.
Yeah.
And I said one of the best experiences of my life that day. Sure. And they were both like, yes, I agree. Yeah. That was an amazing time. And I still remember when we first got there, and the tour was just a little lackluster at the start. And me being like, oh boy, we came all the way out here. And I feel bad. I feel awkward because this guy's trying to show us around. And, it's great to have a guy on a trip like Steve Mastny who's just going to like push a little bit beyond my comfort zone.
Right.
But it usually like opens things up and has like amazing experiences as a result. So thanks to Steve for that one.
I have a much different cider story. Also, this happened at the Shelton Brothers Festival.
And we need to get another beer at some point as well.
This will be a quick one.
Okay. And we got to get that letter too.
I also now remember how that night talking to Edward ended. It's not at all what you would think would happen, but it wasn't. It doesn't have to do with Edward as a whole. It takes a whole separate turn, but we can talk about that if we come back. But this is quick. So Oliver's Cider, Tom Oliver, and Hogan's Cider and Perry, another English producer. I always want to say his name is Tom, but that's Crocodile Dundee, so it's not Tom or Paul. It's not Paul.
Paul Hogan.
It's something else. But Hogan's, we went to a Pizzeria Uno in Worcester, Massachusetts with those two guys who make two of the most wonderful, delicate little ciders in England. We, myself, Ari, who you've met, who helps me brew at Is Was, and Christina ate at a Pizzeria Uno with those guys while they snuck in bottles of their cider that we were pouring into the beer glasses under the table. And then they invited Ari and I to hang out and drink Calvados with them the next morning. But that was the morning of the festival, and Christina said we couldn't go. We had to go volunteer at the festival. And Ari and I probably talk about that every time we work together now, about once a month, where it's one of the biggest regrets of our lives that we didn't just say, screw you, we're going to go drink with these crazy old Englishmen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
Being at a Pizzeria Uno with two guys who make very refined, delicate drinks is a hilarious experience.
That's great. I remember I was with Danielle Thierry, his wife, and the father and son from Blaugy.
Yeah. Pierre Alex.
Yes.
And Alex?
Kevin. I think so. Kevin, yes. And Christina in Portland, Maine, eating, I think, lobster rolls.
That's awesome.
At a little table, and then kind of walking around. And then I think we got ice cream cones. I think Christina bought us all ice cream cones.
Play a little baseball game.
I know, right? That's
amazing.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I have a fun story about them, too. Then.
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
No, we should take a break.
Okay, let's take a break. And then I have a cool little Danielle Thierry story, too, that we can talk about. All right, We'll come back soon.
And we're back. Welcome to the Beer Temple podcast. Chris and I are sharing some of our favorite stories from our life in beer.
Yes. We were talking about Saison brewers. Some of the best as well, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said you had a story about the folks at Blaugy, right?
Yeah, so I went out there in right before everything shut down. So in like late January, early February of 2020. And I literally just emailed them. I had no clout. I was like, hey, I started this brewery. It's really inspired by your beers. I would love to come and say hi. And I'm like, the only time I can be there is not in a day where you're not technically open. If you can't, that's fine. They're like, yeah, come. Roll up. And Pierre Alex, who, if you've never seen him, is just the jolliest looking.
It's like a overgrown elf.
Yeah, yes. It's like a
or a hobbit,
5'6"
like
elf.
A hobbit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes. He's got he had long white hair, rotund man,
rosy
nose
cheeks.
And cheeks. And he's driving a forklift down the street, which is like not, it's.
And he has like a little pointy nose and small eyes and
very French
and he has like a very just like little like jolly.
And he was making a toy,
Saint Nick type look to him.
Yeah, very jovial, wonderful French accent.
Yes.
And he's like driving a forklift down the street, pulls in, like goes down this hill to where their bottling like garage is. And he sees us, and I wave, and he goes, it's like 1 minute, and like 15 minutes later, he's just like moving kegs.
I fell asleep on the warm
we have heated toilet seats in Bologna. He's like just moving kegs one by one from like the garage into their pub. So he comes over, we hang out, and he's like, do you speak French? Both of us like, no.
He does not speak English, really.
He speaks okay English. It was enough to like...
Kevin's pretty good, but...
Kevin wasn't there when we were there.
Okay.
Kevin didn't come in. I don't know. He wasn't at the brewery. But we go in. He gives us a little tour of the brewery. It's also there's a very romantic picture of them brewing in this garage. It's a tiny, tiny garage where they have a 2-vessel system, where they have a mash boil kettle, and then they have a holding tank. So they would mash into this one thing, pump the wort into this holding tank. Clean the mash out, pump gravity, probably feed it back into the boil kettle, then start the boil, then boil the beer. It's insane. It's a crazy system to do. No one in America has a system like that. It takes way longer, and they would double brew on this.
A quick little side. Can I take? It's about mashing out. So I forgot, as part of part 4 of the Cantillon thing, they were one of these helpers was mashing out, and the whole place is shrouded. It's like gravity, so it like goes up. They pump it up, up and up, so it keeps working its way up, and the whole place was covered in steam. Like, you walk in there and it's just like a cloud from your waist up. And I have some pictures of that too, and there's like belts whirring around, and like this is like, it's all copper and wood and metal, and there are like straps and cables and stuff like whirring around, like not the safest thing. And the guy, because it's super hot, and he's in the mash kettle and he's shoveling this thing out, and he's like just like tired, he's gassed, and John is like getting a little perturbed, or like, ugh. So like straight up groundskeeper Willie rips his shirt off, hops over. There's like, you just have to like climb into this thing, and just like tells the guy to get out, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. And I was gonna take a picture of it, but we're like, you know what? This guy's like,
he's doing his job.
He's doing his job. We're not gonna take a picture of a shirtless Jean Van Wall. He's pretty shredded though.
The dreamboat.
Yeah. And just like shoveling, graining out, you know. But anyway, you're
so that's like a picture that like is very romantic. It's actually like there's a Facebook group that's like the Farmhouse and Saison Appreciation Society or something. It's the picture of their garage. So I'm expecting we're going to go and see that. But they've built a new brewery. We go and see that, and it is amazing. They have a mash filter. They're making their rustic style ales on this mash filter. We're talking about, he's like, like essentially like, you know, we don't really care about the romantic stories of what you were talking about. We did that for a long time, and now we get much better efficiencies. We make the same beer with a mash filter, and they're like, we don't have the one thing they were talking about is we don't have a direct fire boil kettle anymore, so we have to boil differently. They have a steam, and they have to boil longer to get similar Maillard reactions.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
But it was an interesting. He's like, we don't really care that like there's this rustic image of what what this is. I'm sure they like it for the marketing purposes. Everybody's like, we'd rather just get the efficiency and the easier day of actually brewing on these things.
Yeah, and I was at some places in England that were like crazy straps and like things like whirring around, and they did not care. Like, they're not like, I got a feeling at one place like if they had the money, they would
not be doing it.
No, it's like, but it would be a huge capital investment, and they're just not going to do it.
Right. There's an amazing tour of Timothy Taylor on YouTube you can watch.
Oh, I got to go there.
Awesome. And it's also like one of these things where you see that they just like added buildings. So it's like they just needed more fermentation space. They built this other building on there. So it just grows and grows and grows. They're never like, it's not like in America where you're like, well, we're going to rip up the floor. We're going to put floor drains in everywhere. We're going to tilt it perfectly. We're going to get these cylindrical conicals. Like, no, it's when they had more space, they added more stuff. Like when they needed more space, they did.
It's crazy. So you go to a different building, and it's like, it gets a little more modern with every building.
Well, yeah, and in that video, they talk about how they would pump the water out of the ground, and they would have to put it at the highest point. So the whole brewery from the beginning was started from getting the water, and then everything would gravity feed. But it's not quite the same anymore. But this was about Plow G. So we finished a little like tour and hanging out, and his other son runs the restaurant, and so I guess they were open that day, even though they weren't open, or maybe he just came in and was there because they all live there. And me and my friend are in there. We thought we were just gonna have a couple beers with Pierre Alex, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Do you want to eat?" And we're like, he's like, "Eat," and brings us these menus. We wanted to get 1 croquette to split and 1 sausage, and they bring us 4 croquettes and 2 2-foot long sausages that they cooked on an open fire in the middle of the tap room. But while all that's happening, the son who runs the restaurant's son, so Pierre Alex's grandson, has taken a liking to me and has dumped out his puzzle on the table where we're supposed to eat, and we're like now doing puzzles together and playing trucks. So
There you are.
I'm like, this is the dream. So,
Right.
yeah.
Family brewery.
Yeah, so we ate our 4 croquettes and our sausages and nearly fell asleep driving 10 minutes to Albarone. But yeah, it was very welcoming people, and that's something we were talking about during the break. Is like, I mean, we're telling these stories. And it's not like we're anyone special to these people. It's just that we asked or we emailed or we told them we were coming, and they were very welcoming and open. They don't know we have like one of the top 1% performing podcasts in the beer in the world.
In beer.
Yeah, right. The big time deal. Pierre Alex, I'm sure, knows what a podcast is and cares very much that we have one.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him.
Yeah, that's I second that. Just email them, reach out, and you'll be surprised some of the stuff that you'll be able to check out and see.
I don't know if my story specifically, but I don't know if all of our stories have gotten to this point, but we're trying to make the point that this is a wonderful community of people, and we've had wonderful experiences in it and with our friends and with people because of it. So if you listen to the show, you're probably attuned enough to speak eloquently to these people about it. So just email them, tell them you care about what they make, and they might be gracious enough to give you some nice access.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they obviously care about this stuff too. So.
Do you want me to tell the end of my Edward gibberish story?
Absolutely.
So after that, we went out for like essentially to a diner, but it only sold sushi with Koji, 2 of the other patrons that were with us, and
like a crazy one of the crazy ones where they're all on a conveyor.
It wasn't a conveyor belt. It was just like it looked like a Denny's, but it had fantastic sushi.
Wow.
So we're at this, and we left Craft Heads, which is the bar, and we were walking to this sushi place, and I didn't have a jacket. And it's like March maybe in Tokyo, and it's cold, but I'm like, it's 50 degrees. And so I said to them, like, no, I don't have a jacket. I brought a jacket on the trip, but I said, I don't have a jacket. It's like, this is like what it feels like in summer in Chicago. And I think they interpreted that as like I didn't bring a jacket for my trip to Japan. Because after we're done eating, Koji's like, all right, you guys walk them back to their hotel, and leaves. And we don't know these guys at all. And so they just start walking us around the streets of Shibuya, Tokyo. And this guy's like, I'm going to get you a jacket. I'm like, you don't have to get me a jacket. It's fine. I have a jacket. Like, I just don't have it with me, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I'm going to get you a jacket. And so we were walking around the streets of Shibuya, Tokyo, and we get to this one store. It's called Trove. It's like a men's fashion store. It's like really high-end stuff. And he takes off these keys, and he opens the door. And he's like, come on in. And we're like, what? And so this guy owns this fashion boutique, and he's like, I've got a jacket for you. And he brings out this like flaxen gold doTERRA, which is like a samurai jacket. And he's like, I heard you were like, and there was no communication area. He says, Koji told me that you guys are going up to Shikogan and to Nagano, where the hot springs are. And this is a traditional jacket you would wear there. And he said, you're going to have this dinner. Because we had this amazing dinner, this like 9-course dinner. That's like a very special thing to do in that area. And this is what you should wear. They give you those things when you like check into these hotels up there. But he's like, this is like a very special jacket. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, this guy is about to like G.I. Joe me into paying $300 for this jacket, because I can't like say no now. Also, I'm probably too drunk to be like, no. I'm like, this is pretty sick. I'm gonna buy this, and it's beautiful. It's like this beautiful golden color, and it's perfectly fits me perfectly. It's perfectly cut, and I'm like, okay, how much is it? And he's like, no, I said I was gonna get you a jacket, and I'm like, what? And he just gave me this like designer golden doTERRA, which I still have in my closet. But
do you have a picture of you wearing it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of there's pictures on the internet.
So you have to send it to me. Yeah. We'll put it on the show notes as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures of me wearing.
All right.
And there's pictures of me that Kate took from behind of just like walking, holding it with my arms up, and like the sleeves on these things are like probably like 1.5 feet,
right,
or about 1 foot, because you would like put your hands in them because they would become like you would. To bundle up,
right.
And so it's like a very functional item. But I'm just like wearing like wings, and it's like I look like a Tetris piece, like the Tetris piece, because it's like this bright golden color in the middle of this like this bright. There might be one of me in Shibuya Crossing with this like golden doTERRA. I'll have to find it. But yeah, that's how that night ended. I'd forgotten about that.
I'm glad you remembered that
story. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's cool. I want to see that. I want to see that picture. Now that you say the Tetris piece, I'm sure I've seen that picture before, but I want to see it because I forget, and we'll put it up there with the show notes, or maybe make it part of the image for the episode or something like that. Sure. So
I think it's got to be your daughter with John.
It could be. Cool. But maybe we could have it as a link or something like that too. So all right. So pretty amazing. I feel like there's two things that we should still talk about. But one, maybe I'll save that one for last. Yeah, I'll save that one for last. So I think we're okay on time, right, Serge? Yeah, we're doing good. People, I think, would be upset and they're expecting this one, and it has to be one, and it is one.
Oh boy.
Going to Scratch.
Oh yeah.
Going to Scratch. The first time for me was the culmination or the continuation of a long-standing epiphany, which I've had now. Like when I have Scratch, it's not that epiphany. I mean, I still drink it. The first beer I had when we started this show was a Scratch. Yeah. Now I'm drinking the Delacen again. I'd had their beer. I'd had my oh my god moment at the Beer Under Glass Fest when I had their Single Tree series, which was just like mind blowing.
You know what? I'm sick of the Single Tree series and every other brewery that's trying to do that. You know, it's like first it was Hazy IPA, now it's the Single Tree series from our estate. You know,
right?
Come on, guys, be a little bit more original.
So I went down there and I went foraging with Aaron, and by Aaron, however I'm supposed to say is the name of you Midwestern people. And
wait, how do you say it?
Aaron.
How are you supposed to say it?
Aaron. I don't know. Whatever. I don't say it right.
I think you said it fine.
Okay, cool.
Maybe it's because I'm from Connecticut.
Aaron. I don't know. Whatever. However I used to say it or do say it, people sometimes. I know Gary Gully.
I don't know if Gary Gully is a real authority on pronunciation,
exactly.
though.
So anyway.
No offense, Gary.
He goes, so really when I say I went foraging with him, I was not doing the foraging. I was making a video of him foraging because...
It's a great video.
Yeah. The audio I wish was a little better, but it was like the best I could do. Yeah. And it was, because I felt like people... It was one of those things where I'm not a videographer. I'm not moved to do anything like that. But I was like, this has to be captured. There's videos of them, but there's no one like doing them justice. So it's like, I'm going to try to at least evoke what they do. So I sat down with Marika and Ryan, the two founding brewers. Ryan's since moved on. And then the other part was just walking in the woods with Aaron and just him talking.
Yeah.
And getting a feeling. It is impossible unless you're there, I think, to truly start to understand what these people are doing with the land out there. And it isn't like single estate. It isn't stuff like that. It's not like that. And I don't know, maybe it's less intentional or at the same time more intentional.
I think it's much more intentional.
Yeah,
so there's something you told me he said that he didn't say to me, but this is through years, so if I'm getting this wrong, that he wants to make beers that express the beauty of that place the way he sees it, and how the Grand Canyon certainly is beautiful, or like a mountain is certainly beautiful in one way, and maybe it's more impactful and impressive, but he wants beers that are beautiful in the way that place is beautiful, where if you sit with them and you look at them and you really observe it, you see like this subtle beauty and the intricacies of what's going on, rather than just being like, oh shit, that's a big mountain.
Right. Not that those aren't, I think he said spectacular. You know, they're not,
Sure.
It doesn't have this huge spectacular like the tropics do or the mountains do. It was on that foraging trip is when he said that. And I wonder if I still have all the raw footage because he said, I mean, it's just me, and I mean, the raw footage is awesome. I hope
Release the
I
raw
still
footage,
have
Chris.
it.
Why are you keeping the raw
Right,
footage from us?
right. I mean, oh, I wish I could. I wonder if I still have it anywhere. So, um, so yeah, it's he's walking, and I'm just seeing kind of what he does, and just understanding like just the way that they think. There's was one part where um, I was I don't know how it came up, but he was talking about how they just use the land in, I guess, the way that it like they try not to waste, or it's not how he says it's like everything to him is so like feng shui in a way. So he was sitting there and we're talking, and there's this like branch going over across the path, and he's like, well, like, so like we'll, I don't know, take this branch and we'll take the leaves and we'll use it in this beer that we're going to brew because it's this type of tree, and then we'll maybe take the bark and use it for that, and then we'll take the sticks and then we'll use it for kindling to light our oven for making bread. I was like, oh, so like where are the trees you're going to do that with? And he's like, no, literally, that's what we're going to do with this branch that I just happened to stop and talk to you about. And I was like, what? And he's like, so for him, it's like, I don't know, where should this thing right here? Yeah, this is what we're going to do with this. This is how we just use everything. And there was like we went into this dried up creek, I guess, because of the time of year. And there was like wild, like raspberries. But they'd already, I guess, fruited, but he was like, yeah, so we can use this and that. I was like, so you use the fruit? And he was like, well, yeah, when it's in season, but in the wintertime, it's great. Like we make great beer. We make these, and still people sometimes don't understand that when they have like a raspberry beer, if it was made in the wintertime, there's not going to be fruit in it. He says he uses the roots, which have this like really nice like floral, or I forget the character that it has. So in the winter, he makes truly seasonal stuff, and it was just exploding my brain walking around with him doing this stuff.
It's a really incredible translation of generations and generations of knowledge and understanding of how to coexist with that specific part of nature, right? It translates it from his great grandparents down to him, and then he translates it into the usage of those things in beer, and then we get to have them.
Right.
Like we would never have access to any of that knowledge if we lived in Chicago, if he wasn't making beers with that, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't get to know everything he knows about like the roots of the wild raspberries, but we can taste these things that are literally born of generations of knowledge about what goes on that land, which is bonkers.
And then you have Marika, who is the brewer who can translate these flavors into the beer because they want it to taste like the thing. They want it to taste like the place. And I mean, I talk a lot about Aaron just because he's such a character.
Yeah.
But she's the one who like turns it into beer.
Yeah.
And that is definitely that trip down there. Well, the cool thing about that is you can listen to like the first or second or third or fourth episode of this podcast because it's been around so long that I came back. And if you really want to hear me like say exactly what I just said, but like probably still
Your
just
hair
like
on fire.
My hair on fire, which I don't have any anymore.
That's why it's gone.
Go back and find that episode. It's one of like the first 5 episodes, I would imagine. Maybe one of the first 10. And it was, one of those things that I'm very jaded, now, but I was already pretty jaded back then. I don't think I've become jaded. I think I just am a jaded person.
Born jaded.
Born jaded, baby. And it was the last brewery that just completely upended like all expectations, everything that I And that late in the game was just the biggest impact that any single visit to a brewery has ever had by far, and which is why I still talk about them all the time. And again, it's not like every scratch beer is the best beer I've ever had. It isn't about that.
But they're all scratch beers.
They're
Like,
all
certainly scratch beers, and you cannot mistake them for anything else.
Yeah.
I was watching. I was watching something. I like what I watch a lot of YouTube, and I like these some of these music.
Oh, and that video is all on
guys.
YouTube, so you guys can go see it. You'll find it. It's I don't know if it's even listed as I don't know whatever. Just find it. You'll find it.
But these like music theory YouTube guys, one of them, they were two of the big ones were having a conversation, and something came up where they're like, you have to make the music that only you can make, right? Like, and it seems very trite, but when I went to music school, and like and part of this conversation was also sometimes the music that only you can make isn't a commercially viable thing, or it isn't good music, but you have to make the music that only you can make. You can make other stuff too, but they make the beers that only they can make.
Yeah.
And not every brewery does that. Almost no brewery does that.
Right.
So
right. And he had talked about, I don't think it didn't make it into the video, but he was talking about thinking how cool it would be if there were scratches like all over the place. Not all over the place, but there were like more than one.
Yeah.
But not even as like not
a franchise.
No, not a franchising, but like
other people similarly inspired.
People who know that land, so that those beers speak to that land that they came from.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like other parts of the country that he thought would be really cool and be really interested to try. Like what ingredients there, but he could never do it because he doesn't know that land, so he could never do that.
I think there's a little bit of that happening at Wunderkammer up in.
Yes, they are the second. They're the only thing that I've had where I get that same vibe. From that guy Vasily. Yeah, from Wunderkammer.
They certainly do things that aren't just of the land, but he's walking in the woods and picking lichen and using it in beers, and they're transcendently good. And you're like. And you're like, man, maybe I should just not make beer anymore because this guy's so good at it.
He's awesome. His beers are
so cool.
Great.
They're so good.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just talk about an experience in a bottle. I mean, that stuff is so cool. And I'm glad you mentioned him because Wunderkammer stuff is one of a handful of breweries I think in the world that like if somebody has a bottle of it, I'm like, okay, I'm there.
Yeah, same.
I want to try that.
What are the others? Just to, I think that's like it's
Mikkelhenny, the new one, because I haven't had enough. The old Alpine people who started a new brewery. Like if someone's like, oh, I got some of their new stuff, I have that N Elston thing because I'm still trying to chase that dragon, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that one would definitely be it. Oh boy, Wunderkammer.
It's a tough question because I don't really know. I don't know if I have an answer. But Wunderkammer is definitely one of them.
Yeah, but like
maybe 450 North.
Yeah, 450 North would be one.
If it's on cask,
for sure. I don't know. I'm trying to think who else would be like that for me. Maybe like something like some of the English stuff if it came in on cask. And it was fresh.
When we were talking about this episode, the idea for it came to me because when we were talking about us drinking Coniston Bluebird Bitter at like this like epic beer festival where it's just you and I that's one of my fondest beer memories, just standing by this keg, just drinking this
the leftovers.
Which honestly, I will die on the hill saying that was the best beer there.
Right.
And it's like, no offense to your daughter's godfather.
Right.
Or to Armand or any of that. But I'm John Van Roy. Not your daughter's godfather. I was joking. But that was the best beer there.
Well, you also have to remember by that time in Shelton Fest history, so many of the Europeans and so many of the domestic people were doing it was the time, I was like the height of like atrial rubicites fame. So everyone was doing these incredibly fruited beers. There was a lot of huge hazy IPAs. There was, again, my boys Beechwood had the only non-hazy IPA at Shelton Fest. Think about that. Shelton Fest.
That's insane.
Shelton Fest. The only non-hazy IPA there There was one.
You would have thought there was one like Spanish brewery that hadn't quite gotten the memo yet, right?
So like there was so much like super fruit, so much haze, a lot of big barrel aged stuff. Not all of it by any means. And I think for me, part of it was like, God, I just want to drink this all night long.
Yeah.
I just want to drink. This is just what I feel like having right now. Not these beers that really are meant to be portioned out.
Well, yeah, and everyone's trying to show off, right? So that's why they bring those big bombastic things. I remember that festival specifically too. That was the first time I met Pierre Alex. And I remember just being at the drinking 2 ounces at a time of Blaugie,
Right.
They were right by Aberon
And Durank.
and Durank. No, maybe Aberon was.
I don't know if
Aberon was over on the other side. I remember you being
Okay.
like, "You got to go," and I'm like, "Oh, where are they?" That being exciting. But yeah, just going in between those like three, where there was no line.
yeah,
but
no line.
Just
Yep.
the best.
Scratch was there.
Scratch what? I actually I was there on Scratch's extra badge.
Oh, nice.
I had flown in to on because Dark Matter had told me that I could come in with them, and then they didn't have
Shirked
enough
on it.
badges.
Yeah.
No, they were like,
I'm
oh,
kidding.
we didn't count, like that one of those things. And I was already inside, but Aaron's like, oh yeah, I'm here alone. You can have this badge.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
Yeah, so it's that's funny. I forgot how we were sort of just talking about Scratch. So yeah, that is definitely that trip down there where I made that video and really was like walking through the woods is something that I've been down there probably 5 or 6 times, maybe more since then. And just just I don't know. Sometimes I just hope that I'm not like bothering anyone there, but I just go there and just like loaf around for a day and like hang out and stuff like that. So it's cool. But I had to put Scratch on there, right?
Had to.
I figured people would be.
It's your
Got to
brand.
give the people what they want.
It's on brand, yeah.
Exactly.
Fan service.
Is there another one that you want? If not, I have at least one more I have to say.
I mean, I had in my mind jogged of this isn't really like a travel story. It's not even it was your urban foraging story. This is probably my favorite story of procuring ingredients for Pipeworks. One of my jobs, and we used a lot of different ingredients, but one of my jobs was sourcing all of the raw ingredients. And this was when we were at the old location, and this guy, I'll name names, Dave Odd. He's supplies a lot of restaurants, like urban foraging guy. Has some amazing stuff, but he showed up to the brewery one time, just completely unannounced, uninvited, with a bunch of insane citrus, right? And he's like, I go down to Florida and I forage this citrus. And he's like, this is a wild lemon, and you eat it, and you're like, this is the best thing I've ever tasted. Like, this is like a pomelo, and you have a pomelo, and like this is a citron, and you taste these amazing fruits. And our minds were blown. They were like incredibly good. And there we worked on like a super, super tight schedule. There was no like we can wait a day. We can push something. If you pushed something a day, the wheels came off.
Yeah,
it was a tight ship. And we had ordered a bunch of the citrus from him for a specific day in February, and it was about 2 weeks before that. And he was like, I don't think I'm gonna go back down to Florida, but I got all this citrus that you ordered. Do you want it now? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, I don't know if we're gonna have it in 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, it's already on the schedule. I gotta take it now. So we take the citrus. It wasn't in prime condition when we used it. It still tasted amazing. It's still great. But some of it showed up with these like stickers on them, and we're like, this doesn't seem very foraged. And so, but it was still good citrus. We used it. The beer was great. It was like a citrus saison when they were still making saison. And it was fine. And then a little while later, maybe 6 to 8 months later, we were making an Amaro beer with a place in Seattle. They made called Brovo. They specialize in making Amaro collaborations with bartenders, and they did this whole Chicago series. And so they had sent us barrels that they had aged their Rhubarbo base in, and then we recreated one of their Amaros. And I needed some, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was sarsaparilla or something like that. Which you can't just like pull up nuts.com and order the stuff. And so I'm like, I got one last shot, and it's Dave Odd. Like I talked to so he used to supply a lot of bars. He used to supply like the Aviary,
Sure.
And we were working with them a lot. So the guy at the Aviary was like, yeah, hit up Dave. He probably has it. And I was like, Dave, I need a 1/4 pound of sarsaparilla root, I think. And he's like, yeah, I got that. And brings a bag a day later. It's 2 pounds. I weighed it. I'm like, I only need a 1/4 pound. And he's like, just take the 2. You never know if you're going to need more. And I'm like, no, I just need the 1/4 pound. I think this is probably more than we even need. And I start pulling this stuff off the top. He's like, you know what? I'll just give you the whole 2 pounds for the price of a 1/2 pound. And I'm like, fine, whatever. It was like a difference of like $10. And pay him for it in cash. Let's see, operating in cash. And then I figure out why he asked for it in cash is because I pulled the top layer off, which actually was sarsaparilla, and then it's just wood chips.
Nice.
It was just wood chips in the bottom of the bag. And we had the 1/4 pound we needed, but this guy was just trying to straight up G.I. Joe force some other stuff on me.
Right.
And I was like pissed. I was so mad. It's not that it didn't end up being that big of a deal. He finessed me out of $10, but like it was just like that he tried to get it over on me, made me so mad.
$10.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And then I was like, we'll never use Dave Odd again. And so a couple years later, we had moved into the new brewery at Pipeworks, which is like a totally different operation. And I see some like guy who looks pretty stoned. It's not Dave, but it's this like kid who looks pretty stoned, talking to someone about, and he has like bags of stuff, and someone giggles and points at me, and I'm standing up on the brew deck. I wasn't brewing, but I was just like standing up talking to the brewer who was brewing at the time, and points at me and giggles, and then like walks away. And the guy walks up to me and is like, "Hey, I'm here with Odd Produce," and I'm like, "Get out, get out." And we just like kicked him out of the brewery. Like, yeah, you sold us a bunch of twigs one time, and we're never gonna buy anything from you again. And he's like, all right, yeah, that happens a lot. And so like after he sold us those twigs, I was talking to like some of our other people that like worked at restaurants and bars and stuff. And like, oh yeah, that'll happen every once in a while with Dave. If you need some money, he'll swindle you, but he does have some of the best stuff when he has the best stuff. So
right,
yeah,
characters.
Yeah, there's this wonderful little characters where it's like
right.
He's also a stand-up comedian, and he also runs ghost tours of Chicago.
Ah, interesting.
So, yeah, I found those things out later when you can just Google them. It's
so interesting.
Which like now I'm like, yeah, I respect the hustle, but then I was like, you
funny.
Son of a...
I wonder if my wife's gone on any of his his tours. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
So the last one I wanted to talk about was when the show. Well, when we were doing the show at CoPro, the after show hangouts.
Oh yeah,
are really one of my best memories.
Yeah.
We would talk about having to like somehow keep the mics on, but I'm sorry, guys. It
wouldn't work.
There was maybe a way to do it. It would just take a little bit more work. Like we had talked about having like a table with some mics that we could stand around, but then if people want to like walk off mic, maybe. But just like shoot the shit and talk about Dave Odd and do things like that and stuff like that, because there would be all sorts of stuff like that would happen, and people would have like these side conversations. We'd hang out for hours and hours sometimes, and then sometimes end up going to Phil's for beefs or going to Hamburger Heaven.
You and I specifically would hang out for hours. There were times we watched the sun come up after some episodes.
Well, that's what I mean. I have that specifically written down. I have it in my notes. Was like some of the highlights are Whiskey with Mike, you know, are just and just like laughing about some of the stuff and talking about things and having Ed just like hold court.
You're kidding me?
Yeah. What the fuck? And
smoking cigarettes
smoking
indoors.
indoors the entire time, chain smoking them, and just a wonderful time. I really do miss some of those shows. In fact, maybe we have to do a show at CoPro every once in a while, because
I feel like they're open back up, right? There's a minute where we couldn't go in there, and we couldn't have more than 2 people.
And also
in
get
there.
Ed on the show. So like maybe once every couple months.
Well, he's been stuck in
go
that
down
crawl
there.
space up there. I haven't heard him.
Yeah,
he must be gaming really hard for the last.
We're gonna go up there, and it's gonna
8
be like
months.
he's gonna be like stuck in the walls or something, like decayed and dead. But one thing I wanted to say specifically about it, which was a great memory, that is like this weird one-time thing that I think gets like forgotten about, but it came from these after-show hangouts, was the Craft Beer Awards.
Oh yeah,
Remember the Craft Beer Awards?
I do.
This was
remember
a
the craft-
95% industry only awards show where you had to pay to go, including the breweries, which they were not used to. And we put a lot of work into it. Me, Ed, and Kate really did the lion's share of it, but also Mark Scala did so much work with
King
videography.
Kona
Yes, he did just some amazing work, and the King Kona video, all those King Kona photos came from that. A lot of people don't know those King Kona photos. I took those photos on a boat.
Yeah,
Of
course, a boat that like someone was like, "Yeah, you can use my boat." Like,
right. It was amazing, and we had like Allison Cuddy did a video, didn't she, from like NPR?
Oh
or
yeah, because
WBEZ?
they were doing Strange Brews at the time.
Yes, and we had didn't like Tony McGee called in, and it was awesome, and just we made fun of everybody, we lampooned everyone. We got Miller High Life to give so much swag and so much donate so much beer.
Yeah, and Malort.
Malort's kind of sponsored, but we really paid.
Got it. You just bought the Malort.
We bought all the Malort. But Sam was super cool.
It was very funny.
With
It was
doing that
sponsored by
stuff.
Miller High Life.
Yeah, we got a step and repeat that had all that stuff on there, and we got a limo, and we got
to walk
a band, I think.
But the limo was just to park in front of the chop shop
Yes.
for people to go in one side and come out the other.
and get their photo taken.
Yeah.
Yes,
out
and
of
then
the
stand
limo.
in front of the step and repeat.
Yeah.
On the red carpet, and people.
There was live T-shirt printing.
Live T-shirt printing, and people had a blast.
Yeah.
You presented an award, right? Was it you and Eric?
I don't remember.
Duster and Dusty and Buster.
Probably.
And
I won an award. I remember that was pretty special.
no mention, by the way, of any of the participants or anyone who showed up what it was going to be.
No.
None.
Well, they all had. They nominated themselves for their awards. They just knew it was an award.
Some did.
They knew it was an award show. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, some did. But they did not. I don't think they knew the full extent of the tone of the award show.
Yes.
And you were in full tux.
I was in a tux.
Yeah.
I think I might have lost that darn tux. I got to find out where it is.
Lost a tux?
I don't know where it is. I got to find it.
That was fun.
Ed was in a crazy Korean outfit.
Yeah.
And
Well, that was also
a lot of banter.
That was an era where he would show up to brewery events in that and then convince people, brewery openings mostly, convince them that he was there to bless the brewing equipment, and then would go through this whole performance of this Korean blessing for brewing equipment, which
He did it.
he totally made up. He did it at Half Acre.
He did a Half Acre, which was amazing. Did it stood on top of the brew deck and they stopped the music and he was talking. He sang some karaoke. He did a blessing to Ninkasi.
With the Korean god Ninkasi.
Yes, and then he probably probably ended up, singing a Morrissey song at some point.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
A Human League or something. I remember being at that, and there were like, quote unquote journalists there to cover it. And then I remember I was standing next to them. They're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, this happens at every Chicago brewery. This has to, like, if this doesn't happen, like, your brewery's gonna be cursed." He does this all over the country, actually. And I remember that showed up in a blog.
that's amazing.
I felt bad about later.
But how wonderful is that those beer awards is something that, like, if we weren't all just so darn busy and it didn't take just all that darn work, I would love to be able to do that again. That's something
really
I
fun.
really, really would like to do again. Is those award shows?
That was really fun.
Yeah,
and
it's because of this podcast, right? I mean, that's why that happened.
Right,
Enough people were there together having beers because we never hang out like these people. Like in the industry, we don't just hang out together.
No, I mean, for obvious reasons for the last 2 years, but it's also just like it got. Not that it's a bad thing, but it got so big. There's just so many people that, like, I don't know anymore. That I don't know. That you don't hang out with them.
Yeah.
There's a similar era where I talked Ed into doing spoken word poetry in that outfit over me playing the national anthem at Dark Matter's 4th of July party.
Yes.
Where that day I bought a guitar that had a skull painted on it just so I could smash it, which is harder than you would think.
Yeah,
especially on gravel. The only time I've seen Jesse from Dark Matter not be like the most rebellious dude was when I was like, I'm gonna smash this thing on the stage. He's like, paid a lot of money for that stage. Can you not do that? I'm like, what? Like, you of all people? It's like, yeah, can you? I'm like, all right, I won't do it on the stage. So I finished playing the national anthem and just threw the guitar off the stage and then smashed it on the gravel in front of it. Hard to break on gravel. It just kind of gives.
It's okay.
But I still have broken parts of that guitar.
You broke it.
I broke it, yeah. I had to spike it like headstock down where it's the weakest.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. That's fine. You broke it, though.
I did break it, yeah.
That was another amazing event.
But that came out of one of those nights of, like, me being like, I drunkenly talked my way into playing the national anthem, and I hadn't actually publicly played the guitar for like 3 or 4 years. It's like, I don't even know if I know how to play the national anthem. So, like, Ed, if you get up there and you do, like, your spoken word poetry about the decimation of the American dream while I, like, noodle around, then it will be a spectacle, and then no one will know I'm not good at this anymore. And so but that happened where I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, they keep texting me, making me do this, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
And he was wearing that Korean getup, and I was wearing paisley bell bottoms that Jesse gave me, and I had a shirt unbuttoned down to my navel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. So that's the only time I've ever done something like that.
That's good, though.
Yeah.
That's
wonderful. You
wonderful.
gotta do it once.
But I would be remiss if I did not include the this show, and specifically directly after the show, talking about it and all, just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
I mean, there were months where we would be getting beefs. Like, at like, when's
Cheesy
last call? At
beefs.
midnight.
Yeah.
So it's like at 11. So the show would end at 10.
Yeah.
Like, and it was 10.
It was the radio. It wasn't like here, like now, where we're like, yeah, we'll start.
So like
late
2 hours in, we'd be ordering food.
Yeah.
And we'd often miss it and then have to go to Hamburger Heaven.
Yeah.
And just like late nights.
Yeah.
The time like Steve Mastney just disappeared. I don't think you were on the show that time.
Oh, he was in a field.
A field getting just destroyed by
flies.
Yeah, no, mosquitoes, just like all over his face. And we had been searching for him for a half hour. And brought him back, and he laid on the floor of the CoPro, and we put a furniture moving pad over him as a blanket. And we just have a picture of his like boots sticking out from the furniture moving pad. And all the photos we would take, which we should really, again, Serge had mentioned that we should get back to doing that. Like, I was looking at some just amazing photos that we would take after every episode. There were some really funny ones that we took.
There's an energy to that place that's like, I mean, it's
so weird.
It's different and weird. And like, most people don't live near Bridgeport, so you're kind of in a different realm. You know, you traveled for like 25, 35 minutes to get down there. You walk into this weird space that there's probably some reggae dubstep festival happening while you're recording this beer podcast, and then you're just like, yeah, it was a different vibe. We'll have to record some episodes down there.
Yeah, we have to do that. Maybe we'll do some roundtables there.
Yeah.
And also don't forget there was an art space, so there'd be like crazy art shows. Some of them amazing. I'll never forget the homoerotic Star Trek fanfic one that was there for a while. Yeah, Serge is nodding his head. And just like some insane art. One piece I tried to buy, but it went for too much. I was going to give it to my mom because it was so insane. I mean, there were some that were hardcore pornographic. Hardcore.
And that's the one you were buying for your mom?
Yes.
Nice.
I mean, no. You know what? It was actually. It was like. Have you ever seen those like those? It's not Kama Sutra, but it's like the old Japanese pictures of like it was like samurais like making up, but they show everything.
Yeah.
There was one that was done in that entire style, very colorful, but it was Spock and Kirk, and I was like, I gotta buy this for my mom.
What would your mom say if you walked in with, Mom, I got you a present? And it was
if I had given it for Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh my God, she would have gone. And by the way, she has maybe never seen Star Trek ever, but knows who they are. But she would have been like, "This is amazing. This is insane."
Oh wow, my mom would be very confused.
She would have probably been confused, but been like, she would have cracked up. It was just so expensive. Like some of them were like Spock is a leather daddy. Like it was so amazing. So that was what a wonderful. And then other ones were like one had been done live. It had been a live performance, a huge mural. It was probably probably 7 feet tall or more by 10 feet wide. And it was all done in blood that he had like cut his hand at the time in front of everyone, and then was smearing his hand, and like even looking at it, it turned like kind of that like rust brown, like it started, and it was just like turned my stomach to see it.
And that was Spock having sex with Captain Kirk.
Yes. That turned something else. No, that.
Jeez.
No, it was but just still like having a visceral response to some of that stuff was it was crazy, like because you forget that the Copro is it's an art gallery. Yeah, and then watching Serge on his like insanely dangerous electric
it's Casey Neistat inspired boosted board that he
would go like 25 miles an hour.
Like
he would like
board,
he would like rip. I would have him show people. I was like, Serge, get on, go, show him how fast you can go up to Maria's and back, and he'd like do it in like
kid
20
who has new
seconds.
Shoes. See how fast you can run.
This thing was so fast. I don't even think, would you wear a helmet? Yeah, you would. Okay, he would wear a helmet.
Serge is the helmet guy for sure.
But like, dude, this thing, it'd be like. If you crash on this thing, you're effed. Serge. You are effed. And I would tell him that all the time. I was like, you cannot ride this thing. It's too dangerous.
Serge,
he's like, I ride to school. I wear to work. And
did you ever crash, Serge?
I got hit by a car.
Yeah, Serge got hit by a car.
And I'd be like, Serge, you're going to get smeared.
Yeah.
You're going to get smeared. You still ride the thing? Yeah, he's shaking his head.
Yeah, no. I don't even think that company still exists, do they? No. Yeah, boosted board's gone.
Right. Oh, boy. So I figured that was... that was my final. Well, there's many, many more. Maybe we'll have another one of these sometimes. Yeah. But I think it is nice to remember how fortunate we are to have some of these like insane experiences, these insane memories.
Yeah. And to have something, this thing that binds us together. This thing that we can share.
Absolutely.
Find other things we share while doing it.
One thing we should share is this handwritten letter, right?
Yeah.
But before we do, it requires us to rate in a certain format.
Yes. A specific beer.
A certain format from a certain app that goes by Untapped.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a quick break? We'll go get it. We're chilling the beer down, and we'll come back with 3 glasses and taste the beer out.
Yep.
We'll be right back. Bye.
Welcome back to the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Chris Quinn. We're telling stories about our favorite times in beers.
Yes.
And now we're going to read a someone else's story.
Yeah.
An electronic letter. Mm-hmm. We got a nice little, it's called Pivo Snaps. Sent in with the letter. If you send beer with your letter, you will get your letter read.
Yes.
It is a Rice Lager collaboration with Other Half and Firestone Walker, and we have some very specific instructions with it.
Yeah, so I can read the letter. It was addressed to Chris and Mike at Studio BT. Thank you very much to Brian from upstate New York. So he wrote a very nice handwritten letter. You know what I will say about the handwritten letters? I'm surprised how often they use unlined paper.
Yeah.
Maybe because people just don't write anymore, so they're like
They don't have
lined paper. They have printer paper.
Yeah, I have grid paper in my moleskin. 'Cause I'm that guy.
Yeah.
None of you were surprised.
Okay, so he writes, Chris and Mike, thank you for all you both do to inform and entertain with the Beer Temple podcast. I'm a longtime listener of the show, and I'm thrilled to see it return after the recent pause. I'm interested in your perspectives on the challenges faced by great beers that have become quote-unquote shelf turds. The recent hot take history of Pale Ale has me craving a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which was one of my first favorite beers in the early 2000s. Right after listening to the show, I saw a stack of cases in the cooler at one of my local beer shops and was thrilled to see a February date on the package, only to focus in and see that it was the year 2021. Wah, wah. I ended up walking out with some fresh Fiddlehead IPA instead. It's tough enough for bottles of Sierra Nevada to compete in a cooler with tons of 16-ounce sticker cans from hot breweries, but even if someone does pick them up, they're not going to be getting the best representation of that beer, 100%. You're so right, which is why we don't put it on draft here nearly as often as we want to. It's really a bummer. It seems like a cycle that cannot be reversed. I choose from a dozen varieties of fresh Other Half at my local gas station. Other Half at a gas station. That's crazy.
They're like
or grocery store.
Yeah.
But I can go to every beer shop in the area and I won't find fresh Sierra Nevada. Is there a line I can wait in somewhere? I mean, that's so awesome. Thank you, Brian from upstate New York. And then he has a P.S. Hot take history.
Still some gas station beers.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, great beers that become shelf turds. Okay, that was what I'm trying to remember what the gist of the letter was. P.S. How many bottle caps would you give an Other Half Firestone Collab Rice Lager?
Gas station beer.
Okay, certainly it gets points for being brewed at Other Half and coming in the 16-ounce cans with a sticker, but the ABV is so low. I can see through the beer, and I don't think it's even a single IPA. Consensus is less than 4 bottle caps. It's true. I mean,
it's probably less than 4
if you
bottle
could,
caps.
if you could moneyball it, you get certain bottle caps for Other Half, you get bottle caps for the sticker label.
You get probably 0.4 for Other Half. You get like probably 0.15 for a collab of 2 recognizable breweries. You get a 0.15 for a sticker that doesn't adequately fit the can. Mm-hmm. It's a choice for a label that was made because this is the cheapest possible label you can buy, not because it's the right one for your can.
Yeah.
And then they use a crazy adjunct like rice.
Mm-hmm. Who would put rice in a lager? I mean, come on. Who does that?
It's not even
Nobody.
It's not even the finest rice.
Exactly.
Just rice. So like it's probably the best.
Pivo Snaps is the name of the beer.
It's probably the best rice lager collaboration I've ever had. So
it's good.
3.2 stars. Probably.
This is a good beer.
Bottle caps. Sorry.
Yeah, this is a good beer. I give it 2.5 bottle caps.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. It is really nice. It's kind of like Pivo-y. Like there's also like a nice, like earthy herbal hop.
It's definitely
character.
Pivo-y.
Yeah, which I like.
I mean, yeah, it smells like there's like Saphir in it or that style.
Yeah, it's nice. It's very good.
Very, very nice. So
in reality, I would give this no bottle caps because I don't really use Untapped. So
right.
But
what about
enjoy it?
No, so thank you very much, Brian from upstate New York. Very, very generous of you. I know that you have our. You know what? He sent us his electronic letters address, so I'll have to reach out to him and ask him what shirt size and what kind of shirt he wants.
Maybe a collaboration shirt. Who knows?
Yeah, man, good luck. Oh, we do have a collaboration shirt. If he's in of a very few sizes, he might get one.
Gotta be on either ends of the
So
bell curve
the challenges faced by great beers that have become shelf turds. That is, I think, to me, one of the biggest issues in craft beer. To me, is like me personally, I would say.
Well, one thing I'd like to say on the top of this is that a year is a long in the tooth date for them, but 6 months Sierra Nevada is probably as bulletproof as something from your local brewery.
Yes.
That's like
3 months.
That's 2, depending on how adequately they're packaging. But
really, you want to get a 3 month or 4 month Sierra Nevada. I mean, really, you want to get it sub 3 months. Let's be real.
You still want to get it as fresh as possible.
If you see it sub 3 months, that's like, yes, hell yeah. 4 months, I'm drinking it all day.
Yeah.
All day.
So don't be afraid of those things. And those beers probably just molecularly are holding up as well as stuff at your local brewery or even a robust local brewery that has all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Bottle conditioned, perfectly packaged Sierra Nevada is not degrading nearly as quickly, especially if it's cold stored. So
and it ages.
Don't be afraid of it. It's got a little bit more. Yeah. You don't have to drink every beer within 30 days for it to be good.
Right.
That's not the case.
And like some beers age better. It's not that they don't age; it's they age better. So like, Bourbon County. It's not that beer's not aging; it just ages very well. And I would say, don't age Sierra Nevada, but that beer ages well.
Right.
Is part of it as well.
Just the composition of it is
Too Hard is another one that ages well.
Yes.
It doesn't taste necessarily the same. But Hopslam does age well. I mean,
it doesn't start great, but it ages well.
Yeah.
But yes, this is something you and I talked about. Is this kind of idea of beers that I guess we didn't use the term shelf turd, but beers that should be more revered and should pull through faster that just aren't.
Don't.
And what is the balance point for those breweries to have, because they have something that's a great product, it just doesn't finding the balance of how much you send to a market, how well you can support it, what the logistics are to only send a small amount if that's all you can pull through there, and then does that actually, if you can't support it with a rep, does that kill it? Like we talked about this like a week ago.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm making a reminder for myself right now.
I don't know if we had an answer. I think this is something we would probably have to talk about with more people and probably more eyes on it, like a distributor. Part of this is the distribution game, right? And the nature of having a brewery that is as large as Sierra Nevada is you're not playing the distribution game with a scalpel the way that even a fiddlehead might, or even something as large as Other Half might be able to, and make sure things are pulling through in the same way. You're in multiple states, you're in dozens of states, if not more, and you have to fill all those pipelines. So it's hard to be all over it. You have specific experience with Sierra Nevada and the friction happening at the distribution level.
There's one right now. There is fresh Sierra Nevada and has been in market right now.
Yeah.
We were told we want to get it, but they have I don't know if the distributor's forecast or whatever is off, but it's first in, first out. So there's older kegs that they will literally sit and wait till they go out of code. But then the fresh stuff is now old,
right? And
now you don't want that. So then that stuff becomes stuff they wait on. So it's just this vicious cycle where the fresh stuff is there, but we just can't get it. We can't get it, and the distributor will not budge on the first in, first out.
Right. When you first opened, one of the things, or not first opened, but first opened the tap room portion of this store, you had talked to Sierra Nevada, and they were fully on board and supportive of you.
And so was the distributor.
I'll get less than a month old Sierra Nevada on draft, and we'll sell it all the time. And it will be like our $5 pint or whatever, $4 pint.
Yeah.
And for a while, they were on board, and then
they still are on board.
Sierra Nevada's still on board.
Yes.
And then the distributor was okay with it.
Yes.
And then what happened?
The warehouse manager basically said no. And then we started getting them as like hot shots where you could kind of like have someone go and pick it.
Yeah.
But then they were like, nope, no, not going to do it. And, you know, how much is Sierra Nevada really going to fight? I mean, they put up a who knows? I was not in on those conversations, but more than they needed to.
Right.
I mean, I have no issues. In fact, I have a lot of admiration for what Sierra Nevada did.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for. I mean, yeah, obviously, I wouldn't be talking them up if I felt like they were, you know, not really. Every time I've ever dealt with them, that they weren't kind of like true to who they say they are. But yeah, the distributors were just, and you know, I get it. I get why.
Totally. Me too.
But it still sucked that, like, in this one instance, they couldn't just do something that was cool, and I think really would have been good for the brand.
Yeah.
I really think it could have done good things for the brand.
Right. And like maybe one of the possible answers to the question in the letter is that you need beer evangelists or people that are really passionate. And I say that half jokingly, but people that are really passionate about specific brands and specific markets that aren't the sales rep.
Yeah.
Like you were for that beer, but then you also need buy-in from the whole signal chain.
Yeah. I remember seeing a stack of Sierra Nevada when I was working at a beer store before Beer Temple opened, and I was like in between jobs. The delivery guy was coming, and I was like, okay. And I was looking at how they were doing it, and they weren't rotating the stack. It was a stack of 12 packs of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And I was like, no, you got to rotate this, man. I'm looking at the stuff on the bottom, and it just kept getting older and older as I went down until the stuff was like a year old, 18 months old, like just getting really old. And then the bottom one, I pulled it up, and like the whole bottom of the 12 pack just was like stuck to the linoleum floor and just came up with it. And, you know, they're like, whoa, you know, and then they're the ones who have to be rotating it. Whoops. They make those guys.
Serge, that's a swear.
No, that's not a swear. That's not a swear. That's where I was. And it was, they make those guys from the distributors do the rotating for them. But, you know, shame on the guys who weren't checking it at all. And I went to the manager and was like, and his hands were tied. He was like, yeah, okay, guys, yeah, you do have to take that away. Like, what's he going to say?
Right.
Like, no, it's okay.
Right. But I mean,
pull it.
But
he didn't care.
Those stores, while they have a lot of craft beer and have been wonderful for the craft beer industry in Chicago, they're not built for craft beer specifically. They're built to sell handles of vodka and high-priced wines. So, like,
and also to be fair, yes, 100%, and jug wine. Depending on what store you're in.
Yeah.
I know jug wine was like their like biggest seller there. But the reality is, I think a lot of the stack and those big stacks, right? These impressive big stacks, is to look big and impressive.
Yeah.
And the bottom part of it could really be just like
the lost
boxes that are painted to look like. They might as well just be like, they should make ones that are dummy, that aren't really full of anything.
They got to be structurally could
have something that is something in it and be like, here, this is what the bottom of the stack can be, and then the top can just be stuff. It's just lost. Yeah,
I worked at a similar store where they had a stack of vodka that was probably 10 feet high and probably 20 feet wide of one SKU of vodka, and probably 10 to 15 feet.
Yeah.
Like 10 by 20 by 15
giant
of just handles of vodka when you would come in just the right. And those cases were full. They didn't rotate those cases. If it's vodka, it doesn't really matter. But when you look at that, you're like, this isn't here because they got a deal. I mean, they probably got a deal, but like, it's not here because they got a deal and they had to stock up and then they're going to sell down this inventory. That thing never dwindled down. It was just to be like, you come here and we have all the vodka and we have it the biggest bottles with the biggest display.
And also, there was probably some deal to say, like, we're going to put you right here, we're going to put a giant thing of vodka here.
Yeah.
Do you want it to be yours? I mean, I would be surprised. Now, I have no idea if anything like that happened.
I'm just knowing literal bottom rung. I almost got fired twice from a minimum wage job. So
I was fired. I was fired from that job. Probably best employee that beer shop had ever had. Maybe not.
I probably should have gotten fired.
I was like, "Are you starting up a beer store?" I was like, "Yeah," and they're like, "You're fired." And I was like, "Oh, well, I was actually giving my 2 weeks today," and I was like, "In fact, I already told the guy that I'm giving my 2 weeks," and they're like, "Oh," they didn't expect me to say yes. They expected me to try to fib about it.
Yeah,
this is some stuff I've never told on air.
Yeah,
and they're like, I was like, "Oh yeah, in fact, I was just coming to see you because I'd already told so and so," I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, then, I was going to give my 2 weeks. I didn't want to screw anyone over, but I didn't want to hide anything. And it had been a temp job for me, frankly. And they're like, well, yeah, I guess, you can, okay, well, yeah, you won't be able to leave. And in fact, today's actually going to be your last day." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
and
they don't
like,
mess around with that type of stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Actually, you leave right now." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And I was like, how did they find out about it? And then on the way out, I saw a guy who worked in the department with me. And I was like, "Hey, man, I just got,
canned.
I canned and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, my gosh," and this and that. And I found out like a year later that he was the dude. Yeah, who did it.
Hilarious.
So, I know it's you. You broke my heart. You might be listening. I know it was you.
I know it was you.
Mm-hmm. Still in the industry. It's okay. I forgive you. I don't really care.
Did you end up opening the store?
No.
Yeah, no.
Nope.
Broke your heart that you couldn't work at a big box store.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bevmo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Binmo.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we've gone way long.
Yeah, thank you for listening this long. If you have stories you would like to tell, write us a letter.
Oh my gosh, please. That would be amazing. I would love to hear just, something that we could relay. I mean, if you want to tell us, that's awesome. If you can do it in a concise way.
Yeah, don't be
and
like
what
us.
it meant to you.
Yeah.
That'd
or
be
just
cool.
Like, if you are or if you are not in the industry, tell us a story about beer that is special to you.
Show, like a super special, super heartwarming, or show off. Show off a little bit. Like
drop some names. Who held your kid?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who held your kid?
Yeah.
Is it cooler than Jean Benoit? Huh? Prove it.
Yeah.
Because you got to send a picture. Or
Beer cool or real cool?
Pics or it didn't happen.
Yeah. That's the name of this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Start showing each other pictures while we talk about things.
Just trying to one up everyone.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for listening. I hope you made it this long. It's been a fun show for us to record, I believe.
Let us know if you like these. Like, these are kind of different for us. So if you like them or if you don't like them, tell us.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if we don't hear anything...
If you made it this far, then...
If we don't hear anything... So this is the truth. If we don't hear anything, we're going to assume...
Every episode.
That you didn't like it.
Oh, no.
No, that you didn't like it because you didn't make it this far. But if you did and you kind of liked it, you kind of dug it, it's not like we're going to do this every other week. But if you want to do this one maybe a couple times a year, we'll keep doing stuff like this because, believe me, we have all sorts of stories. And we can do more of them. But thank you guys so much. Is there anything you want to say before you get out of here, Mike?
No, thanks for listening.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.